Hello everyone, Terminator Dark Fate arrives next month and many of you have been asking me to revisit the first two Terminator films. So on that note, let's take a look back at The Terminator from 1984. Now, The Terminator, of course, was directed by James Cameron long before Titanic, Avatar, The Abyss, True Lies, and even T2. He came up with The Terminator. He was sick with the flu and had a feverish nightmare that pretty much involved this cyborg. And yeah, we get to see that at the end of the film. I love the effects. I love the story of this original 1984 Terminator. You know, it's pretty much an action film, but it's also a science fiction horror film. And that's what makes it a truly original film in my eyes. More than the sequels, it was also a bit more grounded. You know, you didn't have crazy action set pieces like you did in the numerous sequels, no. But this was the start of something. It started with this film. It brought on sequels, video game adaptations, novel tie-ins, and even a TV series. And it's all thanks to The Terminator. Paramount declined this film, which is weird because they're the ones who have the rights now and they're making it. James Cameron was taking it to multiple studios. This is the definition of an independent film. He ended up partnering with Hemdell Productions and they pretty much distributed the film. It was done independently. They worked with Fantasy 2 Effects and Stan Winston for the cyborgs and the future scenes and all the prosthetics. Of course, it stars Arnold Schwarzenegger as the Terminator. He's the villain in this. And originally, James Cameron wanted him as Kyle Reese. He didn't feel like he was right for the part. He kind of identified more with the machine. And originally, you had Lance Henriksen as well as O.J. Simpson in consideration for the T-800. Yeah, that's kind of interesting, given in retrospect, but I love that Arnold Schwarzenegger is a T-800, you know. He just did Conan the Barbarian, and he really made some conscious decisions on how to act as a T-800. I think any other actor would have tried to act too human, you know. Arnold played a machine. He acted like a machine, and that adds to the role. It adds to the kind of terrifying factor of the character. So eventually we end up getting Michael Biehn as Kyle Reese, and I love that, you know. He's a military type of person, but he's also a human, and that's what makes it so frightening, is that it's a human against a machine. He's protecting Sarah Connor, played by Linda Hamilton. And yeah, she is in this. It's one of her earliest films. You know, she was also in the TV series Beauty and the Beast. I love the way this film starts, you know. It has a brief description of the dark future we see with the machines. And you get that title sequence that, of course, has inspired so many other movies and TV shows. Hell, Stranger Things has even taken influence from The Terminator with the title and other characters. I love how this opens up, setting up both these characters. Both of them trying to find Sarah Connor. You know, you have Bill Paxton. Wash day tomorrow. Nothing clean, right? So I think this guy's a couple of cans short of a six-pack. You have that great scene there where he's like, give me your clothes, now. Such a brutal scene that sets up the character. We also have Kyle Reese on the run, trying to get supplies. They both are trying to make their way towards Sarah Connor. And Sarah Connor is not the military badass that we see in number 2. No, she's a waitress. She's an everyday American girl. And that's something very different, you know. That this is going to be the mother of John Connor, the savior of humanity, basically, of TechCom. And I love how it starts off. You know, we get to see her, basically, college-age waitress, her with her friend Ginger, relationship, stuff that everyday women her age do. She doesn't have to worry about this future threat. But we get to see the T-800 just mow down people. That part where he's like, I need the Uzi 9mm, and he, like, shoots that guy. And he's just like, you have to pay for that. It's like, wrong. I love it to where Sarah thinks that Kyle Reese is following her. You have that awesome sequence at the Tech Noir. You know, you have Tenny Kane and the Triangles play, photo play and burning in the third degree. That whole sequence is done very well because Sarah, from her point of view, thinks that Kyle Reese is this killer going around killing other Sarah Connors when it's really this T-800. There's a moment where she drops something and he barely misses her. You have that whole And that fantastic line where Michael Bihn's like, come with me if you want to live. It's just an adrenaline ride from beginning to end. Her being put on this journey, we get to learn more about the future and about these characters through her point of view, with Kyle Reese explaining everything. Them getting arrested in the police station is crazy. You know, you have Earl Bowen there. Lance Henriksen is just like, the guy was on PCP or something. And Earl Bowen does a fantastic job as Dr. Silverman. He's in this before we get to see him in T2. And then you have that fantastic scene where the T-800 just hunts everybody down in the police station, which is like, I'll be back, creating such an iconic line. And throughout the course of the film, Kyle Reese and Sarah Connor grow closer to each other, and you find out that Kyle Reese is actually the father of John Connor. And it leads to that showdown. This is a fantastic movie. The Terminator is such a great start to this story. And I have a theory on that now that we're revisiting it. I think that John's father was a different individual the first time around. Then Kyle Reese goes back. He happens to maybe fall in love with Sarah in maybe a different way. Father's John, and now that's his father. So John, with that knowledge, sends Kyle back, because if he doesn't, that will basically risk his own existence. So Kyle has to go back in order for John Connor to exist, and that hence creates a time loop. So the Terminator, this film, is probably the third time it's happened. Or they're just stuck in a time loop. There's a paradox. It is a time paradox at its finest. But quality-wise, this is a fantastic science fiction horror film. I love The Terminator. Stan Winston did some amazing effects. That scene with the eyeball is just so creepy. It used to scare me as a kid, and it was a puppet with some like animatronic eyes. You can kind of tell now with high definition, but I had the live VHS back in the 90s, and yeah, that was crazy seeing that. The acid they put on Arnold to like kind of shave his eyebrows, give him a different look. The endoskeleton at the end was shocking, and mostly that was done with miniatures, kind of stop motion animatronics, and like a little puppet animatronic on the stairs. I love the use of editing, the practical effects, and that's what really makes this film and its sequel stand apart from the rest, you know. Not only that, James Cameron was the sole writer-director, and I absolutely love The Terminator. Great soundtrack. Brad Fiddel's score with that metallic kind of synthesized score is done so well. That dun 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 dun. I like that track. And then when Kyle Reese and Sarah Connor escape from the police station, that is such a great tune. And ultimately, it leads to the ending of Sarah being pregnant with John and a storm coming. Oh man, there's some deleted scenes here that actually deal with the Cyberdyne Systems subplot that's in T2, and we find out in the deleted scene that that factory at the end was Cyberdyne Systems. Interesting. But if I had to give the Terminator a score, give it a 4.5 out of 5 and an A. This is a fine film. It's a perfect film, as a matter of fact. Sure, some things could be improved, but it's a low-budget independent film, and James Cameron, even with his earliest work, showed how much of a masterclass storyteller he was, you know. He is, you know. And I love this first Terminator. Arnold Schwarzenegger would also not spend time talking to Michael Biehn and Linda Hamilton. He didn't want to form a connection, so he'd appear more threatening. On a minor sub-note, I like to say that I like the original mono track. The stereo track is good, but there's a part where Arnold's on a motorcycle, and it's when Kyle's throwing pipe bombs. It just sounds like a little pea shooter. It's like, pshh, pshh. Where in the original one, it sounds like a damn Magnum, which is like, I don't know. That always annoyed me with the new remix, even though it's in stereo. I like the mono track. There's something about the mono track that I really, really love, the way it sounds. But, yeah, this Terminator was a force to be reckoned with. You know, it killed Sarah's mom mimic voices, but they didn't push you around. It wasn't like the sequels where they have a machine that just pushes you around. No, if a Terminator got near you, you're dead. And that's what makes it so frightening, you know? He cannot be bargained with. He cannot be reasoned with. And he will not stop ever until you are dead. And that's what makes the Terminator an unstoppable force, what makes Arnold so memorable in this role. You know, it was right after Conan the Barbarian. They had to wait a little bit when he was filming Conan the Destroyer, and this was a big risk with him playing the villain, but James Cameron promised him they'll be the baddest villain. And this is one of the few characters that's on AFI's hero and villains list. And man, If you have not seen The Terminator, first of all, why are you watching this video? But like seriously, check out The Terminator, and if you have seen it, revisit this film. This and T2 are great, and we'll have to see where Dark Fate leads. It could either be another lackluster reboot sequel attempt, or it could be the real deal. It could be T3. But if it's not good, it's going to convolute it even more and probably be the final nail in the coffin to what otherwise was a great story started with The Terminator here. So many science fiction films have taken influence from The Terminator and its success. And I must say, it really is inspirational as a fellow filmmaker to see this film and see what they did on a low budget. And something's missing with its sequels. You know, you have a bigger budget, you have more effects, but you're missing the character, you're missing the editing, you're missing the practical use of effects. And James Cameron always had a motto of film what you can for real and computerize or use effects on stuff you can't film for real. And that's where the magic is. So yeah, Terminator is a classic. Have you seen Terminator? Most likely you have. Let me know down in the comments below your favorite moments of the Terminator. You can also check out this playlist up here of all my Terminator reviews. I'm going to have a Terminator 2 revisited because Lionsgate took down my Terminator 2 review from 2 years ago. So we're going to revisit that before Dark Fate. Let me know your thoughts and memories of the Terminator. I love to hear them down in the comments below. Check out that playlist and also check out these other videos on my channel. Remember, there is no fate but what we make for ourselves.